No, I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about.
Came off a junket. I think you remember, Megyn. She went to Berlin. A private leftist group asked her to speak, and it was for $750,000 for 60 minutes. It worked out to about $12,000 a minute. And it was very funny about her because I only bring this up because in that interview, I think you remember, she was making fun of capitalism. She said it's supposed to trickle down, but it doesn't even trickle down now. And I'm thinking, you just made $12,500 a minute. You know what, Michelle? You were asked to speak on DEI, but you didn't speak on E. You only spoke on D and I.
Okay, let's dish some juicy gossip like we're chatting at a sleepover. Megyn Kelly and Victor Davis Hanson are tearing into Michelle Obama's perfect image. And it's like they're smashing a sparkly statue with no mercy. Forget the fancy speeches and staged sad moments. They're burning through every fake story, from her planned poor me act to acting humble in a huge mansion. Nothing's safe. This isn't just a talk, it's a total takedown of the image everyone was told to love. If you thought Michelle was untouchable, get ready for her crown to crash hard.
J6 to right that ship. Enter Michelle Obama. All the speculation about whether Biden can make it, and he got lost even at the last event. He was wandering around on the stage when he made his January 6th remarks. Jill Biden had to save him. Enter Michelle Obama, who sits down on this popular podcast, though I've never heard of it, but apparently it's popular. With this guy, she has nothing to promote. She has no book. She has no event. So that means she called them and said, I have something to say. And she very clearly has something to say.
Tucker or one, they say these things that aren't true, whether it's Michelle Obama talking about black lives being indiscriminately almost daily killed on the street, or Andrew Cuomo with the worst record about the virus and then bragging as if it was the best, because there is no media as we used to know it. NBC, ABC, the network news, CNN, MSNBC, PBS, NPR, they're fused with the progressive movement in general and the Democratic Party.
Hey, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. Michelle Obama turned her White House outfits into a big deal and somehow ended up with a legacy more about book deals than real guts. Megyn Kelly and Victor Davis Hanson saw this polished superstar act and decided to turn it into a funny wrecking party. Under all those magazine covers, dance moves on TV, and planned drama, there's one of the most overhyped political stars of the last 20 years. And the roast kicked off with a bang, like aiming a fire hose at her fame machine.
Your speech was diversity and inclusion, but why didn't you put equity in there? Because it's pretty unequal. For you to get 12,500, which is more than most people in the world make in an entire year, you made in a minute. So they have this bad habit, the Obamas, that every time there's a social justice question, whether it was George Floyd or economic downturn, they appear. Sometimes they appear from Kalorama, sometimes from Martha's Vineyard, sometimes from the new Hawaii mansion, sometimes from their old Chicago digs. They come out and they lecture the country on its illiberal tendencies.
Megyn Kelly didn't waste a second peeling off Michelle's perfect label. She jumped right into how silly it is to think being popular makes you an expert. Wearing cool clothes and giving pep talks doesn't make you a policy pro-it, makes you a brand. Michelle's been selling herself like a mascot for a big company, smiling for photos while dodging anything real. She's been dressed up as this super graceful, perfect person, but take away the shine, and it's just a grumpy speech in fancy shoes.
She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, my fears aren't for me. You know, I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate, for me, it's, what's happening to immigrants.
I mean, I travel in a 4-car motorcade.
Victor Davis Hanson lit up the roast by pointing out Michelle's constant poor me attitude. She vacationed like a queen, lived free in the White House, and built a huge media empire with millions. But she still acts like America did her wrong. At some point, saying you're picked on while starring in Netflix shows stops being inspiring and starts being kind of rude.
After all, I'm Michelle Obama. She actually says this. And then she says, but I worry for my girls because, not that much because they are sort of recognizable, but I'm worried about them.
So it's not the fear for myself anymore. I drive around in a 4-car motorcade with a police escort. I'm Michelle Obama. I do still worry about my daughters in the world, even though they are somewhat recognized.
Megyn dove into Michelle's mixed-up act. She says she hates politics but jumps into every hot topic like it's a school rally. She acts like she's just like us from her $12 million beach house. It's like trying to seem normal while chilling on a mountain of gold, and somehow, the news eats it up like it's the best story ever.
Actually said, because I think he had the vision of splicing her in. And you almost couldn't believe them. It was like, I think you might need to go back and check that. There's no way that must have come from some other parody. But no, time and time again, it was her exact words. That she's even more miserable than we portrayed her.
Even more. And since then, I can't wait to see how this is received because I think it's another banger. But she did that podcast recently where she said, I think you talked about.
Then there's her big switch from First Lady to pop star hero. Victor laughed at how Michelle complained about fights in politics while acting like anyone who disagreed with her was silly, with her fancy school smarts. If being full of yourself was a game, she'd win every prize. She can turn a boring story about eating veggies into a huge drama about struggle. She made school lunches a national issue, but while kids got stuck with yucky tofu nuggets, she was probably eating fancy food. Her healthy eating push felt less like helping and more like showing off for the camera's pointless, bossy, and made for headlines.
Here she is talking about it. If it were me, I would say something nice about him. I would say like, he's just so charming. It was meant to be. I knew he could heal the earth in the way he did. There was only one person who could do it, and it was my husband, Barack Obama, whatever. Then she gets on to talking a little bit about him personally, and this is how that sounded. Thought 18.
When a girlfriend comes to visit, it's usually like, you got to stay for 2 days because it's going to take us so much time to come to.
Victor didn't let her school talk slide either. She always said she was fighting for kids, but sent her own to super fancy private schools, far from the messy public ones. When parents asked about school stuff, she disappeared faster than a magician. The same lady who said she cared so much was suddenly gone when it got tough. Megyn called out Michelle's need to be seen all the time. The only thing she hasn't been seen doing is owning up to the fights she helped start while acting super perfect. Victor went after her big hero image next. She's called a once-in-a-lifetime star, but really, her impact is just a bunch of social media quotes that sound like old campaign signs. Her book sits on tables, unread, while her real mark was making everything about getting claps. Actual change, not so much, but matching outfits with a message. Perfect.
So they have this bad habit, the Obamas, that every time there's a social justice question, whether it was George Floyd or economic downturn, they appear. Sometimes they appear from Kalorama, sometimes from Martha's Vineyard, sometimes from the new Hawaii mansion, sometimes from their old Chicago digs. They come out and they lecture the country on its illiberal tendencies.
Megyn dug deeper into Michelle's fake humble act. She keeps saying she didn't want fame, but then grabs every paycheck and spotlight. She says she hates attention, right before starting another tour, book, or TV special. Her retirement is busier than most people's jobs and planned like a big school show. Victor tore apart her sneaky trick, staying in politics without running for anything. It's the sneakiest power move ever, always around, always nudging, never signing up. Megyn made it clear, Michelle's popularity isn't about being brave, it's about being super planned. Every appearance is like a recipe, a bit of tears, a lot of I'm important, and a big mix of rewriting history.
Here she is interviewing Dr. Sharon Malone, perhaps better known as former Attorney General Eric Holder's wife. And therein lies the problem, as these two ladies, married to two very famous men, are pissed that they are not the alpha in terms of popularity and recognition.
She's not a leader, she's a lifestyle brand. Somewhere along the way, people forgot to ask what she's really done, besides being great at being loved. Victor hit hard, saying Michelle's always talking about the country's heart and goodness, but when it's time to call out problems in her own group, she's super quiet. Speaking truth is only cool when it's about the other side. The fake act is so thick you could sell it as syrup. Megyn didn't miss how the news protects Michelle like a treasure. Any criticism is called an attack. Any disagreement is labeled hate. She's the only person who can say boring stuff and get cheers for being brave. Brave. her biggest risk is wearing a wild-colored outfit.
It is worse than Watergate because the President of the United States knew that he didn't have the intelligence to suggest that Donald Trump was a Russian asset. He thought that narrative would have worked in the election. It didn't. Donald Trump, I think, surprised to himself, was elected. So here you have a lame duck president trying to destroy the incoming president. He essentially did. There was no reason for Clapper or Brennan, or in the case of the FBI, to tell Barack Obama there is signs of Russian collusion. He gave the game away. He was praising.
Victor said Michelle might be remembered as the most overrated political figure ever. A first lady with tons of promise who left with a book deal, a podcast, and a never-ending poor me speech. While real leaders dealt with tough rules and public fights, Michelle was writing poems about her feelings and giving talks about how hard it is to shop without being noticed. Megyn's final joke hit like a storm. This roast wasn't just personal, it was super sharp. They didn't just poke fun at Michelle's myth, they smashed it. Smile by smile, speech by speech, and there's still more to say. When your career, it is built on mixed up stories, there's always another layer to pull apart. Another cheer to question, another overhyped moment to show for what it is.
Cherry-picked 4 or 5 other analysts and then presented a false picture to Barack Obama. Or did he? Or did Barack Obama request that he do that? It'll be he said, he said. Then we come to James Clapper. He was sitting at this meeting in December 2016 where he gave a false assessment and he misrepresented.
Megyn and Victor made it super clear. Michelle's biggest win wasn't helping people, it was making self-promotion a superpower. She didn't leave the spotlight, she made it bigger. Every time people start to forget her, she pops up with another big interview, full of dramatic pauses, old memories, and just enough vague talk to stay above criticism, like a balloon of picky outrage. She doesn't talk to teachy, she talks to go viral, and it works. She's turned tough times into a brand and poor me into a business plan. Victor didn't let that fake sacrifice slide, tearing into her act of pretending she suffered.
Gave mixed messages. They kind of told one person, we want an open convention. The other is that Kamala should be. They didn't know who was going to win for 72 hours is what I'm getting at. And they were trying and trying. I think their heart said they wanted a black woman that they thought they could control in the same fashion they control a demented white male like that Biden. They weren't sure about that.
Michelle acts like her White House time was a huge burden she bravely carried, like she was forced to live in a fancy house. As if private jets, cool dresses, and worldwide fame were a punishment she took for the country. She had a style team and a huge stage, but you'd think she was locked up alone based on her book tours. Then came the big roast, her real act. Megyn pointed out it's super ironic that someone so carefully planned, so protected, still sells herself as honest and real. It's fake relatability wrapped in a super expensive jacket. Her kind of real is like a TV show with a script and tons of helpers, slick, tricky, and polished to a joke.
Many people don't know. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every food, every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to play.
Michelle Obama, listen to this.
And at this phase of my life, I'm in therapy right now because I'm transitioning. I'm 60 years old. I've finished a really hard thing in my life with my family intact. I'm an empty nester. My girls are in, they've been launched. And now for the first time, as I've said before, every choice that I'm making is completely mine.
Victor wrapped it up by drawing a line between her fame and her real impact. Michelle's influence is huge, but it's super shallow. Her speeches sound pretty, but say nothing. Her books are long, but easy to forget. Her fame is worldwide, but her beliefs stop short of owning up. She's a headline without a legacy, a moment without a real push. So the curtain falls, not on a hero story, but on a perfectly staged show. Michelle will always have fans and followers, and always a new way to say the world didn't get her. But what she'll never have is what matters in public life, results that last longer than claps. With that, Megyn and Victor left the stage on fire. The roast didn't just dent her myth, it smashed it. The spotlight's still on Michelle, but now it's showing the cracks. Once you scrape away the glamour, what's left isn't a leader, it's a brand, well run, well sold, and totally empty. That empty echo is reality catching up.